welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place where creatives like you can learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr. Have you ever thought about what nature can teach us about life and relationships? Imagine a garden, each plant representing a different aspect of your life or relationships. What does your garden look like? Is it thriving and full of life? Are there parts that need more attention and care? Well, today we're wading into this profound connection between the natural world and our inner worlds. How can the beauty and tranquility of nature help us understand ourselves better and nurture our relationships? How can the principles found in nature guide us toward a more fulfilling and balanced life? Our guest today has spent over 30 years exploring these questions. Charlie Jones, a licensed independent clinical social worker, has dedicated his career to helping individuals and couples find peace and connection through nature. Born in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Charlie completed his education at the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, and his extensive experience ranges from case management to private practice. His unique approach often incorporates photographs from nature to facilitate therapeutic conversations. He believes that nature, with its inherent beauty and order, can be a powerful tool for healing and understanding. He draws his inspiration from Christian teachings and uses his photographs, which he describes as having the essence of faith, to help his clients find common ground and mutual understanding. After retiring, Charlie continued his passion for social work as an outpatient drug treatment therapist and found a renewed sense of purpose through gardening, prayer, meditation, and faith. He's also an accomplished author with works including A Garden Love Story, a parable of the faith journey to marriage, and Growing a Successful Marriage Through Faith, cultivating your marriage to produce the fruit of the Spirit. Today we'll be discussing how Charlie uses his books and nature photography in his practice and how these creative tools can inspire us to cultivate our own lives and relationships. So Charlie, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much.
Absolutely. So we met briefly at an author's event in Tuscaloosa. I stopped by your table and I loved your book. It was so adorable and just so profound for something so simple. And then my husband enjoyed listening to you talk about it so much that he went out and bought his own copy.
Oh,
And so that's what I knew. He came back to the table and he said,
mhm.
"You need to have him on your show." And I said,
Oh,
"Okay." So here we are. And now I would love for you to tell us about yourself and maybe some of your early experiences that sparked your interest in both nature and helping others.
okay. Well, I'm Charlie Jones, and I'm an avid gardener. And my love for gardening came as a result of my family. Now, I come from a family of gardeners. My mom and dad was married for over 25 years. They had 8 children, and I can't remember a time when I wasn't in a garden or they was forcing me to work and dig the potatoes and do things like that. And my parents tried to instill in me, in all of us, a respect for authority, the need to excel in education, and a need to give reverence to God.
Mm,
Those were the three main recommendations. So, to prepare me and the rest of us children for our life journey, my mom used to read the Bible to us.
mm,
We'd gather around her and she'd read the Bible. Then she would assign she would tell us, look, I'm going to assign you Bible verses. And she said that you can choose your own Bible verses. I'll tell you the number that you need to memorize. You need to read them, memorize them. And then she wouldn't tell us a time frame. Sometimes she'll surprise it on us. So that means we had to be on our guard. So we not only had to excel in school, respect authority, do our chores, but we had to memorize the Bible verses. Sometimes she would give you 40 to learn in 2 weeks. She would increase the number sometimes so to put a little bit more pressure on you. Now, my mom was a person who believed to spare the rod was to spoil the child.
yep.
I don't know where she got that one from, but she would utilize it. And so you, if she gave you 40 Bible verses, the limit was probably two that you could miss, and it was not a chronological order. She could start in the middle. She'd say Matthew 4th and the fourth. You would give her the scripture, or she may start and say, "Man should not live by bread alone." You better know Matthew 4th and the fourth. So you learn respect, I guess I would say through trembling. And so that over a period of time, I guess I knew 250, 300 Bible verses just by memory. Of
Mm,
course, I'm 6 to 8 now, 67 and a half, and so things are a little bit different. But I came to understand later in my life that what she was doing was preparing us for life.
Mm.
She was actually planting a seed that would come, that would grow once we come into these crossroads in our lives. And so in 2021, I retired. I've been in private practice, case management. Now I got plenty of time in my garden. And so still continue to study the Word of God and garden. Now I've written a book. It's called A Garden Love Story, Parable of the Faith Journey to Marriage. Now, on this particular day, well, because I'm a therapist, I'm used to having a pad and pencil. Even in my garden, I will write down an idea, and then when I finish gardening, go back in the house. It doesn't make any sense. But on this particular day, I was in my garden, and I think what happened is that I had a therapy session with my vegetables. That's the best I can figure that out. Because I was thinking about marriage, humans, couples, and vegetables. And it occurred to me that they all have a lot in common. Now, you have to understand the relationship between me and my garden. I kind of like, if you know the series of Twilight Zone, I go up into my own world. I can regress, play in the mud. I can do whatever I want to do, anger management, whatever you want to do. And the neighbors are looking at you saying, wow, he sure has a beautiful garden. He must know what he's doing. So on this particular day, I was thinking about marriages, humans, couples, vegetables. And as I looked out over my garden, got into a train of thought. Now, it may not be rational, but let me tell you what I was talking about. I said, all of these things have something in common. And as I thought about it even more, I said, it's a symbiotic relationship. Now, first of all, the vegetables were not talking back. It just
That's
me.
good. That's good. We call that heat stroke. You go inside.
so my so my thought process was this: vegetables have physical characteristics and varying nutrients.
Mhm.
Humans have physical characteristics and varying personalities. Vegetables provide nutrients to the human body. A married couple, there are two human bodies that require nutrients from vegetables. A body without nutrients from vegetables will become diseased. A marriage without spiritual nutrients such as love, trust, faith will become dysfunctional. Vegetables and marriages go through seasons of growth or decline. The first marriage was performed in a garden, and then vegetables grow from seed. And from my Bible study, I read about the genealogy of Mary, which was the seed of the woman, and then that was the root of Jesse. So then I started thinking about these things, and I remembered that Jesus, well, he used things that people could understand in order to teach a spiritual lesson. In other words, he took a mustard and a mustard seed and taught about faith. So then I was stunned there for a minute. I said, well, what if vegetables were humans? How would a vegetable know who to marry? Of course, people have been trying to figure that one out for a long time.
Right. We're still struggling, apparently.
And I found the solution. So the book that the Lord let me get written is a garden love story. It utilizes figurative language techniques such as metaphors, double word meanings, humor to improve cognitive flexibility. Allow a person to think outside the box. The purpose is to allow you to transition from the happily ever after stories that you learn as a child to one based on spiritual principles.
Mm,
Now, the main character in the book is Daisy Cabbage Head.
there you go.
Daisy Cabbage Head is a garden, is a vegetable in Godfather Goodson's garden. Now, Godfather Goodson is God the Father. She, the garden is located in Fieldtown. In the garden also is Grace Goodson. That's God's grace through Jesus.
Mm,
And then there's Reverend Holofield. That's the Holy Spirit. And the three equals one, which is the Trinity. And so Daisy has reached her salad years. Her salad years is the growth stage of where she feel like time is running out and she wants a husband. Now, in the garden are suitors. There's Mr. Corn, Mr. Squash. Here's Mr. Corn.
there you go.
Yeah. Okay. And Mr. Squash. And so Daisy is trying to find someone who's ripe for the pickings, but she don't want to be picked herself. So she's on this I call it a faith journey. Now, first of all, a cabbage head is a person, male or female, who lacks spiritual discernment.
Mm.
Her foundation of her thinking is in the lust of the flesh, deceitfulness of riches, and the pride of life, as was Adam and Eve. So she's in the garden. She's young, and she is very impressionable. She's in Godfather Goodson's garden. Life in the garden of Mr. Godfather Goodson. Thunder, lightning, intense heat and rain. To Daisy, these were just minor inconveniences in comparison to the destruction left by those menacing pests, the butterflies. The butterflies invaded their privacy by leaving them the care of their eggs without providing instructions on how to care for them. The eggs hatched into thriving caterpillars, eating them out of house and home, and leaving their beautiful green foliage filled with holes. Adding insult to injury, the caterpillars transformed into butterflies and flew away without giving notice of their departure or displaying a show of gratitude. Miss Daisy Cabbagehead always complained about the butterflies, but secretly she envied them. She was jealous of their ability to fly and other freedoms she felt they enjoyed. She could imagine butterfly couples flying to Italy to get married or line dancing in midair during their courtship. Daisy's head would steam with passion as she imagined what it would be like to be a butterfly. She envied their carefree life and options for courtship. Who am I kidding? I must be out of my head. I'm grounded, is what she would say to herself as she returned to consciousness from her daydream. Daisy, with her large melon head and full figured crisp roughage, was good for digestive health. She was full of vitamin A, K, and antioxidants. Daisy knew this, but she wanted to be more than just a star attraction in someone's vegetable soup bowl. She wanted to be an adult, and to do this, she realized she had to turn over a new leaf. Daisy would ask her parents dubious questions like, why was I born? Why is my life so hard? Why do veggies get what they want and I never do? Her parents, good Christians as they were, could not give her definitive answers, and that frustrated Daisy. She felt that they should know the answers because they had been married for many seasons. Daisy was now on her 20th day of a 95-day season and felt her time was running out. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. The rod of correction will drive it far from him. Her father, Clyde Cabbagehead, and mother, Bonnie Cabbagehead, had two daughters. Daisy's older sister was married to Mr. Spinach. Mr. Spinach was rich in vitamin A and K and essential in weight reduction and red blood production. He was a strong leader, but a loner because he had a foul mouth. He liked to tell distasteful jokes. Daisy's sister, Mr. Spinach, had two children who were both in jail, one for mugging a mouth, the other for pickpocketing a peanut. The scripture is even a child is known by his deeds, whether they are pure or right. Now, I want to read David's first encounter. His first encounter was Mr. Corn. Daisy had already been creamed by her first experience with courtship when she fell head over heels with Mr. Corn. Mr. Corn stood about 6 feet tall. He was all ears, but a poor listener. He was tall, dark, and handsome, and judging from the tassels he sported, well educated. At first glance, he gave the impression of being shy and modest, a man of few words. However, after a few sips from his nutritional drink, he seemed to buzz like a bee. His demeanor changed and he became a corn dog and a beacon of knowledge. He claimed to have graduated with honors from Cornell University. He boasted that he came from a family of colonels, and he was voted the world's most perfect vegetable. He was quick to boast of his ability to reduce the risk of colon cancer, anemia, improve bone strength, and control diabetes. Daisy felt that a future with him would end in heartbreak because he made her feel small. He also had the irritating habit of ending all his statements with the word shucks. She admired him for being an attentive father, but he always had his children attached to his side. She wondered if she married him, would they be able to spend quality time together without the children? She wondered how much time would she have to bond with the children if they were always attached to him. Daisy wanted to be more than his sidekick. She was aware of problems associated with blended families and father daughter attachment issues. Furthermore, in her heart, she knew he wouldn't be around come first frost. I'd like to read one more.
Okay.
One more. This is her relationship because there are about 6 or 7 uh, that she will have encounters with. Okay. I want to read Mr. Squash. Mr. Squash was a politician, and Daisy had an instant attraction to him because of his vocabulary and his smooth talk. She was fascinated by the fact that he could say a lot with a few words and use a lot of words to say nothing. What was more impressive about Mr. Squash was that he was running for the office of president of Fieldtown. He promised the veggies of Fieldtown that if elected, he would boost immune systems, manage diabetes, improve lung health, and serve in his anti inflammatory capacity to reduce arthritis, gout, gastric ulcers, and improve cardiovascular systems. He promised to work with other branches to pass bills that were rich in vitamin A and C, and that the bill would contain minerals such as potassium, phosphorus, calcium, and iron. He promised there would be a vitamin in every pot. Daisy was fascinated with his smooth talk and could imagine herself being the first lady of Fieldtown. Mr. Squash loved to debate, and his crook neck gave him an advantage because he was stiff necked, hard hearted in all his opinions, mainly because he could only see one side of an issue. As a husband, however, Daisy thought he may be rigid and insensitive when it came to marital issues. She grimaced at the prospects of him driving their children to school. She became disillusioned with him when she researched his family tree and discovered he was a fruit. Imagine that, she said to herself, presenting yourself as a vegetable when you are a fruit. What party are you in? This is what she muttered to herself as she further researches his family tree. What bothered Daisy even more when she discovered Mr. Squash was related to the pumpkin family. Being a part of the pumpkin family was frightful to Daisy because she knew that the pumpkin family carried dominant genes for obesity. She was also alarmed by the fact that the pumpkin family had strange rituals of carving their faces in October, but in November they were sweet as pumpkin pie. Daisy thought it was unethical for Mr. Squash to be running for the office as a vegetable without revealing his fruitful past. She concluded that he was just a crockpot and wondered what other secrets he wasn't revealing. She also learned that, like Mr. Cucumber, Mr. Squash was a member of the creeping vine family. But unlike Mr. Cucumber, he lacked tendrils, would quickly wilt in the sun, and tended to travel in circles. Daisy couldn't imagine herself married to someone who couldn't be transparent in all areas of their relationship. Daisy fell into a depression because her dreams of becoming First Lady of Fieldtown, with all the fame, notoriety, and worthy causes she could champion, were squashed. So Daisy meets, there's a Mr. Onion and a Mrs. Zucchini, and there are several others that she encounters. And with each encounter, she is disappointed. And so what happens is that Daisy goes back to her parents. Her parents try to give her instructions. She, she basically tells them her to talk to Godfather Goodson. But Daisy, at that point in her life, was not ready to have that discussion with Godfather Goodson. It was only through her disappointments that her heart became ready to receive the seed of faith. Her What she needed to do was to have faith that Godfather Goodson had her best interests at heart. She had to grow spiritually herself before she could make a decision. And so that's pretty much the crust of her story. Now, in the book, there are several areas. In the book, we have the book is gender friendly, like I said, and there's a section in the book where you can mix match the vegetables. In other words, you can have a Mr. Cabbage Head meeting a Miss Corn, and you can write down in the book what do you think some of the issues in their marriage would be. You can have there's a Miss Onion and a like to say Mr. Squash. Now we don't want to get too deep into that because it goes beyond some areas. So,
Yes.
but if you stay on the surface there, you can so well, and then you can add other variables like age differences, blended family issues, uh, even height differences, wage income differences, and you can imagine what would happen in those situations. There's another section of the book. It's called it's veggie soup, and in that section, you're looking at characters in the Bible, marriages in the Bible, and what were the obstacles in the
Mm,
marriage. Now, what you may derive out of that is that basically God had God's sovereignty was at play in each other's relationships.
yep.
Sometimes a bad marriage, if you call it a bad marriage, can bring you into a better relationship with your higher power or God.
Hmm.
And so that's pretty much what Daisy had to learn. So Daisy goes through this and eventually she finds the right person for her. And I'll just leave that as a mystery in the book.
No spoilers. We don't want any
No
spoilers.
spoilers. I've given you enough of the book. But anyway, though, anyway, I get excited about the book. And
Well, that's
so
good.
I get very excited about it. And let me say this I have a section in the book. It's called Parables in Pictures. And it's a personal story. Uh, as I said before, my mom, when she was giving us all those Bible verses, and they were really, I mean, yeah, 250 Bible verses, but you don't really know. You're just reciting
Yeah.
things. And then it takes life to make things real.
Hmm.
And so in my personal life, like I said, I was married 30 years, three kids. I ran across a problem in my life. I had marital issues, I had financial issues, I had medical issues. And I was at a point in my life with all my education, I had run across something that I could not manage. And what I did was I would talk to my family about it, and they were always telling me, trust God, have faith. And I thought I knew
Mm.
that already. And so I was in such a miserable situation that when they would tell me, have faith, I would listen to them. But I just, okay, I just shrugged them out. I got to the point, though, to where I asked the Lord, I said, I need to see faith.
Mm.
Uh, Something sort of ridiculous thing to say, but that's where I was in my struggle. And so what happened was this uh, in my garden, down and out, and everything. I was coming from my garden onto my little patio, and I noticed something that was a seed, an okra seed growing between the crack of the concrete. Now, this is a picture of it. It wasn't this big. It wasn't this big,
Oh
but it was
my.
small. It was very small at the time.
Yeah.
And I noticed it and I said, in all my life of gardening, I've never seen nothing like that. So I put a little cage over it and I watched it. And then it outgrew the cage. And so now I'm sitting here, I'm saying now, um, education. There's so many reasons why this should not be existing.
Mhm.
It's between the crack of concrete. Uh, it doesn't require me uh, to dig around it or anything. It's the sun should pretty much burn it up.
Mhm.
Something could run over it, and that became like an enigma to me because why only one okra? Why only one seed? And so I became enamored with it, and so I started taking photographs of it, and I became obsessed with it. I would take 4 pictures a day. It was my model. I would take it from the side, from the front to the top, and uh, I was just, I was just, it would be raining, and I'd be outside of the house, and my neighbors looking, and I'm trying to get a picture of it, and so and I asked my neighbor once. I say, "Oh, did you see that okra there?" She said, "Yeah, but I thought you planted it there." And I'm saying, "My goodness, does she think I'm a real, you know?" So, so anyway, time went on, and in my misery, one night I had finished my Bible study, and I reached over and I got the photographs, and something miraculous happened. I could see the Bible verse in the picture. In other words, you take a picture. Let me just kind of show you here. The okra that I showed you in the sidewalk, I could attach a scripture to it.
Oh, yeah.
Between a rock and a hard place,
Nice.
God's grace is able to sustain you and provide for all your needs.
Oh.
And that was a moment in my life where I just broke down.
Mm.
I broke down because to me, it was saying, you are the okra. Look beyond your circumstance. Depend upon his grace. I looked through the other photographs. Now, this is the same picture over time.
Yeah.
Over time. Now, it has changed, but
Yeah.
that was a scripture by faith. That's Hebrew
Mm.
chapter 11.
Mhm.
I am reading the Bible as being interpreted through a photograph. And so I have, like I said, what I did was I would take a photograph and read my Bible, and the photograph, the essence of the photograph, would interpret the scripture for me, and I would just cry, and I would cry, and I stop crying, and I would say, "Am I having a brief psychotic reaction?"
Oh gosh.
You know, when you're educated,
Yeah.
and then things start happening to you beyond the
Mhm.
bounds of your education,
Mhm.
then it really shakes you up. And when you get into a point in life to where your education can't help you, the psychiatrist can't help you because you don't want to bring this to him. But there's a special message. There's
Mm.
a special message for you. I could the thing that's wonderful about it is that I guess let me put it this way. Um, it functions sort of like the old ink block test. You know, the rough shocks test.
Yeah.
Either you see something in it or you don't see something in it. Some people see a cow jumping over the moon. Other people see Ulysses Grant's face. It's just depending on where you are and how you interpret it. Each of the pictures uh, will represent something different to other people. Now, take for instance this picture that I just showed you, between a rock and a hard place.
Mhm.
Okay, I can use that picture and say basically, this is the story of Moses, children of Israel, Egyptians chasing them on one side, Red Sea on the other side, between a rock and a hard place.
Mhm.
My God is able to sustain you and provide for your needs. I had an experience in one of my therapy sessions where I showed a client this without the writing, without the text. He asked me, how did I learn to grow marijuana like that? But it kind of gave me an idea of what his issues were or
Yes.
whatever.
Meet
Uh,
him where he is.
meet him where he is. I can show this to someone else, and they would say, "I remember when I was in prison," and I'm
Mhm.
saying, "I didn't know you were in prison." Anyway, it the photographs have a different effect on different people.
Mhm.
Let me show you this other one. This is a photograph of when let's see, can I get it.
There
It's
you go.
see how the wind is beating that.
Mhm.
It's a windy day. It's moist, the water, and it's beating on it.
Yeah.
And I can interpret that as trials of the soul, which faith grows.
Mm.
Or I can interpret that as the the disciples on board the ship.
Yep.
And he said, "Peace be still." So there's a lot of flexibility. Or you can
Yeah.
interpret it as what's that flower doing in the middle of the concrete? It
Mhm.
just depends on where you are. So in a therapy session, especially if a person wants a spiritual foundation, then it works well because it provides the clients to be able to project their problems onto the photograph. It gives hope and it lets them know that we can, honey, we can get through this thing.
Yes. Do you know what I keep thinking? Like you're talking about the nature and the photograph and the spiritual aspect of it all. And I was over here like looking it up on my phone. So when
Mhm.
somebody's watching the video, like I'm looking on my phone. Yeah, I really am because I
Mhm.
was looking up Romans 1:20 and it says, "For his
Oh,
invisible
wow.
attributes, namely his
Absolutely.
eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made." And I just keep thinking, that's we have this creative creator who made
Exactly.
nature so that we can connect with him through it. I mean, we're not to worship the nature, but we
Mhm.
he gave it to us to learn from and to use in this kind of way. And so I love that you have that platform and that you have created these resources for that.
Mhm. Absolutely. It's the story of Adam and Eve. That's why
Mhm.
he put them in a garden. He so that they could feel his presence,
Yep.
even though he was not physically present.
Mhm.
Now, I've gotten into the photographs until I put the photographs. I have about I call them parables and pictures, and they are large size photographs. I put the scriptures to them as it reveals itself to me, and I
Mhm.
show them to other people, and I will say like, "Do you remember when you were between a rock and a hard place?"
Mm.
And they can take their own personal story and say, "I remember when whatever I couldn't pay my light bill,
Yeah.
and this happened." It doesn't have to be something that's supernatural. I
Yeah.
can remember when I was in prison. I'm saying, "Wow, you were in prison? What am I sitting here?" Don't anyway,
I get it.
but they will open. They will open up. They
Yeah.
will open up, and then with me as a therapist, of course, a limited, I can open up some things, and
Mhm.
we can have a conversation, not on the level of therapist to this person below me, but as a human being,
Yes.
we can talk about things. So the pictures can even represent a whole a parable within itself or a personal journey that you may have had, and it works whether you're spiritual or not. If you show the picture, if you start the conversation, you don't have to have a text on it. All you have to say is basically, "I remember when." And if you start, "I remember when I was," and then everything else flows.
Mm.
And that's why I call the photographs the parables and pictures. Now, some people interpret things different. They say it's growing through faith.
Mhm.
I consider the way I look at it is it's coming through concrete separation. So it's a lot of you get a lot of conversation, different views, but in the end, you wind up at the same place.
Yep.
Something's going on in that picture that's just not humanly right.
Yes. I love that. I was when you showed the one with the okra being, pelted with rain and the wind and that kind of
Hmm.
thing. The one that came to my mind was in Isaiah where he says, "When you pass through." the
That's
fire,
exactly
when
right.
you pass through the waters, like you're going to get to the other side. That okra is going to produce fruit. That okra is going to
That's
flower.
right.
It's
That's
going to
right.
do its thing
It's
when
going
it
to do
gets when it gets to its time.
when it
When
gets
it's
to
when
and
it's
and that's the secret. The
Mhm.
seed that mom planted in me with those Bible verses
Yes.
grew at the
Mhm.
time that it needed to grow. And
I
all
love that.
and all the education I had and all the I had been doing therapy with other people, but I didn't know this.
Right? We do that though. As mental health professionals, we tend to put ourselves in these positions where it's not me. It's never me. I'm not the
Right,
one that needs, I'm here to
right,
help you. And so
right.
we don't self-reflect and we don't take that time to say, maybe it is me.
Maybe it is me,
Yeah.
and so it's a journey. Basically, it's a journey for everyone. Uh, I learn from my clients,
Mhm.
and they learn from me. You know, I guess the hardest thing for me was to understand Thy will be done, because
Mm.
I want things the way I want things, and
Yes.
when they don't turn out that way, I say I throw away the baby with the bathwater.
Yes. Guilty. Raising my hand. That's
Right,
me. I am the same way.
right. And so that's pretty much the gist of the book. It's a I think, and this is the thing about it. I know I didn't write it. I wrote it, but something was going on that was person who don't write that way. And in other words, but on this particular day, um, it was like I was in the garden and I was a comedian, and everything I said was funny. And I kept writing it down, writing it down. I showed it to my wife, and she thought it was funny too. She says, she said, what's went on with you in the garden?
Maybe you weren't growing okra in that garden, Charlie.
No, no, no. I, it was okra. It was okra.
Okay. No,
But
it is though. It's very punny and you keep people's attention that way, so I
yeah,
I
yeah,
love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, and we all love
Mhm,
humor, and sometimes life gets so serious when you are talking about relationships, when you are
mhm.
talking about just life in general, it gets so heavy. So sometimes you do need that lighter outlook.
In
You're
their
not
life.
making fun, you're not poking fun, but you're making
Hmm.
it easy to understand and relate to. And so I think that
Right,
is fantastic.
right, right. And so I have a about 40 photographs. All other photographs are not okra. The Lord has opened up some other. I see things in banana trees and things like that, and so I attach the scriptures to them. I have, and I, I take them to church, and the pastors, they're saying basically, well, uh, they have, they have a good opinion of them, but I don't, when I leave there, I'm saying, well, hope I didn't, say too much because
Yeah.
I get really excited about the photographs. And
Well,
so
yeah.
I'm working on a book now called Parables in Pictures, to uh, where the pictures would be the star of the show, and a person reads what they want to based upon their own life story. And
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm so glad that you're doing that. I think when you can find something that we all relate to. I mean, not all of us are gardeners. I am not. We
mhm,
tried. We bought a little farm a few years ago. We planted a garden. We've done it 3 years and we failed not miserably, but we weren't super successful the first 2 years. And the third year, it was just like, can we be done with this? Like it's not for everybody, but
mhm,
we all love the idea of it. We all can relate to those vegetables in some form or fashion. And so, yeah, I think it's a fantastic analogy, and those parallels are great.
mhm. And people come to me and they say, "Well, Charlie, you have a green thumb," and I'm saying, they think I have a green thumb. It's kind of like what you call the person who could talk to the animals.
Oh, Dr. Doolittle. Is that you in the garden?
But they don't talk to me.
That's good though. We've covered that. We're glad for that. That's not healthy. But I do think that, you were given this story. You say it wasn't me that wrote the book. You
Hmm.
were given that story. And I've said
Hmm.
this so many times on my show that when you're given a story, you are meant
Hmm.
to share it. It's not like if it is given to you, it's meant to be shared.
Hmm.
I think and maybe experiences, you don't have to share all the details, but there's going to be somebody who will benefit from the experiences that you've had, from the
Exactly.
story you've been given. So, share it. You never know whose life it's going to change.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so what advice would you give other creatives who are they want to incorporate their passions into their work? Like where would you tell them to start since this wasn't something you set out to do, but now you do it and you love it. You're clearly passionate about it. So how would
Mhm.
you encourage somebody else to do it?
Well, I would ask, I would first of all tell them to examine their experiences. Um, uh, go back as to what you were. In other words, we are all driven to get an education. You get caught up in the 2.5 kids in the White House and the picket fence. But life is a process. And as you, those things are tangible. They could be lost, they could be taken from you at any time. I would tell a person to strive for your education, but in the long run, what will last and what's going to take you over the hump is going to be the spiritual
Mhm.
aspect of it. Most couples who have long lasting relationships are those who have a spiritual connection, think the same way, prioritize the same things, and then when they go through loss, the spirituality keeps them together.
Mhm.
They pay if their bills are not, they don't have funds for their bills. They don't turn on each other.
Right.
They use the spiritual side to say, "Honey, we gonna be all right." Otherwise, what happens is that he's gonna say, "Well, you got your hair done. We could have paid the light bill, and now you got a situation on your hands."
Oh, definitely. Yes, we like to place the blame. We never want to
Exactly.
take responsibility
Exactly.
because that means that we've done something wrong. So yeah, no, that's so true, and I do think that finding your spiritual grounding when you're
Mhm.
setting out to pursue a passion, I think that will take you farther than just saying, "I want to do this. I'm going to do this." Like you find that grounding, and then the balance comes, and the passion just kind of flows.
And there are so many people who have lost. I
Mm,
mean, I look at athletes who may have lost a foot, but
mm-hmm.
they're jogging.
Mm-hmm.
Athletes who's lost most of what they had materially, materially.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watch movies like the autobiography of, let's say, Aretha Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
She went back to the roots.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens that no matter how far you go,
Yep.
you wind up in the same place. Sort of like what David told Solomon. He gave him those instructions, and then Solomon went out and all these experiments. And at the end of the book of Ecclesiastic, he gets back to fear God and keep his commandments.
That's it.
After he had messed up everything.
He went back to the basics. It's like, where do you start? Back to the basics.
What my daddy said.
That's right. It seemed to work for them. Imagine that.
And it works in most areas of life. When you get old and you have all the money, and the
Mhm.
money can't bring the satisfaction that it did when you were younger,
Mhm.
then there has to be something that keeps you going, keeps your
Yes.
passion. So I thank my mom and dad. I didn't
Good.
think them at the time. You're walking around here with 250 Bible verses in your head, and you're just young, you're 17 years old, and you like that girl, and they nicknamed me preacher. They cursed me from the jump. Anyway, I think
I guess looking back, there are worse things, but
at that time that was the most important.
right. Tell listeners how they can connect with you. Is there a website? Is there Facebook? What do you have for
Well,
them?
that's Facebook, and then I have a email address, jonestherapeutic@bellsouth.net, and I put that information. Um, I'm open. I'm learning. This is my second book, and I had really no experience in writing books, and so everything that I've learned has been trial and error to some degree, dealing with publishing companies and that kind of thing.
Yes.
But this 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 garden love story, the first book, Growing a Successful Marriage Through Faith, it has the same pictures in it, but it's based upon my personal experience in marriage. And I could look back and see all the things. In other words, I was a cabbage head. And so I can look back on all the mistakes I made, and all the circumstances I created for myself, and all the myths that I had in my mind as to what a man's supposed to be,
Mm,
and misdefinition of what sacrifice is.
mm,
And I can use the pictures to analyze myself. But at that same time, I come out to the same thing that David and Solomon fear God and keep his commandment.
Why do we make it so complicated? We always
Right,
make it complicated.
right. See, the thing is, men make decisions, God determines outcomes.
That's right.
And a lot of times we don't want to accept the outcome
Mhm.
or we feel like we've been done wrong. But that is a part of the spiritual growth.
Okay, so I have one last question as we wind up our time here together. And that question is, what is one piece of advice or encouragement you want someone to walk away with if they hear nothing else?
I would say learn to accept your uh, victories,
Mm,
your defeats. Uh, learn that life is a process. When you're 26, when you're 60, I call myself 67 and a half. I round up a little bit. You're not going to be able to do the things that you did at 26, but there's a peace.
mm.
There's a peace inside of you when you understand your limitations and when you can take your life, all the defeats or whatever, and see them as victories.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think that's fantastic advice. Charlie, thank you so much. Thank you for being just generous with your time and your
Okay.
knowledge and your wisdom. I appreciate that. And I hope that we can do this again sometime. I can't wait to hear when your next book comes out.
I'm sort of afraid to.
No, don't be afraid.
I know. I have a friend of mine. She says, Charlie, you're writing about cabbages and vegetables now. You were a therapist, and now has it come to this? I said, yes. I said, great. I said, thankfully,
Listen,
things are simple now.
vegetables are so much easier than people.
Thank you very